Hey. That was Lauryn Hill. Singing Bob Marley or joined by Bob Marley? No, he's gone. She's singing Turn Your Lights Down Low. Thank you so much. A couple quick announcement that we forgot at the start. The Recyclery tomorrow is having an open house and fundraiser, their winter fundraiser. That's tomorrow, Sunday, February 10th. 2 to 8:30 p.m. at 7628 North Paulina. Food, music, screen printing, raffle prizes. Help out the recyclery.org. And one other thing, an interesting, given that we were talking about our mayoral candidates, Lori Lightfoot is having a gathering at her barbershop, her favorite barbershop, this Wednesday from 5 to 6:30 p.m. It's the Headrest Barbershop in the Congress Plaza Hotel, 520 South Michigan Avenue. Check out the one unconnected to scandal as of yet candidate, I guess. Speaking of which...
Candidates.
We got a candidate in front of us.
Good morning.
Angela Clay, candidate for the 46th Ward. Alderman, welcome to Live from the Heartland.
Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, Angela, how long have you been running for the 46th Ward, Alderman?
All my life. But officially since late August, early September.
Uh-huh. When you say all your life, does that mean you've lived in the Uptown neighborhood?
Absolutely. Born and raised.
God love you.
Yes.
You have a former Uptowner. You have two former
I know.
Uptowners here,
I'm
actually.
so excited.
Yeah. But they're from another era. You're there now, and you're running against the sitting alderman.
I am.
How do you position yourself as opposed to his policies?
Well, really briefly, I have a degree from DePaul. I have a job in corporate America.
Ooh.
I have no children. And I cannot afford the ward that built me into the woman that you see before you.
Ooh.
So that is my life. My platform is my life that I'm talking about. And a lot of young people that we have in the ward understand the gentrification that's happening and how it's impacting them negatively. And so it's really easy to go against the incumbent because all of his practices have been kind of build high-end luxury developments, and they will come, and we're trying to figure out who are the they, because the community residents and folks who've been there for a very long time don't understand the changes that are impacting them on the long run. So,
Angela, how many candidates are running for this seat?
there are 5 running against the incumbent, so six total.
Altogether?
Yeah.
It's another crowded field.
Yeah, it is.
So we're probably looking at a runoff.
Oh, it's definitely going to be a runoff. Absolutely. I don't know who's going to meet me there, but...
Nice line.
Well,
That's a good
you're
one.
a confident young woman.
Absolutely.
That's good. So you are neighbors with a couple other wards that are also in big races.
Yes.
The 40th Ward.
Yes.
The 49th Ward.
I am watching closely. I will publicly support my sister Maria Haddon. You all are neighbors in the 49th Ward.
Yes, we are.
We are.
Yes,
So I
we are.
hope you are paying grave attention.
Well, we have the same issues, a lot of
Absolutely.
the same issues. The gentrification fear for some residents who cannot see a rent increase, cannot live with a rent increase.
Absolutely.
Also the development that does or does not ask community members first what
Yep.
you'd like to see. And something that Mick Dumke just said about, having a growth plan as a mayoral candidate, I think aldermanic candidates need that as well.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things that you've found yourself saying on the campaign trail that really resonate with some of your voters?
Yeah, so 70% of our ward are renters. And a lot of people don't understand that when you don't have a stable base of rent control, we are literally pushing our neighbors not just out of our ward, but out of our city. We know that we are having a population decline all over this city, and it's because folks can't afford to live where they want to live. Also, our schools. It doesn't matter if you have a young child or a child in high school. All of our property taxes go into our schools. And this is how we retain families in our ward is because they follow the great schools. So you need to make sure that you have great schools. You need to make sure that you have rent control so that folks are stable in their ward and they can actually build roots. You actually have to make sure that they have affordable housing. So a lot of folks, when they hear affordable housing, they think that it's just low income, Section 8 HUD, but that's not it. You actually need affordable housing for families. You can make upwards of $70,000 a year, guys, and still be qualified for affordable housing in this city. So a lot of people need to understand that you probably qualify for affordable housing.
Oh, I know I do.
Exactly. So, and I'm here to break that myth and that stereotype of what it means to be in affordable housing, because I've grown up in it my entire life. I'm a proud product of Voice of the People and all of its products, work that it's done for 50 plus years. So it doesn't mean that you're lazy. It does not mean that you're uneducated or that you're not skillful. It simply means that in case of an emergency, the last thing you'll have to worry about is where you and your family will rest your heads. So all of those things are everywhere, all along the city lines. Every neighborhood that you talk to, they want to make sure that they can live there, that they can build families there, that they can prosper there. And so you need all of those key components for them to do that.
What is the situation on schools in the 46th ward? I know that there's a former school that's turned into condos.
Yeah, we've
and
got.
then you have charter school issues.
No charter school issues yet, but you can see that they are waiting because of the gentrification that's going on in the ward. So I am a proud product of all of our schools. I started off at Joseph Brenneman. I went to Uplift Community High School and graduated. Yes.
That was a community developed high school.
Absolutely. One of the best high schools in the city, too. And I will tell anybody who knows me, if you do not have a student that actually knows about Uplift Community High School or have never been there, please get them in there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
It is an amazing school with an amazing curriculum and an amazing
Thank
group
you,
of,
Helen Schiller.
Thank
and
you.
Other community organizers.
Because your
from
work
Memorial
did
Day
not
20
go.
years ago.
Yes, your work did not go in vain, and I'm
Right.
here to make sure that it doesn't continue to go in vain. So, our schools right now are currently being disinvested in. We're having trouble with enrollment because a lot of our families are sending their students outside of the ward, and that's an issue for
Right.
us. We're not even feeding our middle school into our only high school in the ward because our high school, our designated, community high school is Sin High School. Great school, but it's outside of our ward.
That's
and so
right.
it pushes families to travel. It puts a burden on families who are already strapped for resources and money for another expense. So we need to make sure that we're coming up with a plan that we have pre-K through post-secondary education all in our ward, and nobody has tapped into making sure that they have a clear pathway to all of those resources. So I'm here to make sure that our schools are actively getting funded. I'm here to make sure that they are actively teaching strategic curriculum, not just about slavery and not just about things that happened 400 years ago, but we're in the age of technology. These children are on YouTube all day. Why do we not have any coding classes early?
Thank you.
Why are we not thinking, ahead of the curve instead of waiting on it to come? So we've got a lot of good things that are going to come with these schools this year.
On policing, we have a lot of issues heading into this election.
Absolutely.
And the consent decree that came out is something that we're cautiously optimistic will actually have an effect on this forever culture
Yep.
that includes the code of silence and lots of other bad practices. How would you approach, how would you work to change the code of silence and also to develop better relationships between police and community members?
Absolutely. I asked this question with all of the folks that I talked to, and it's basically who knows their police officers. And I might get a few pop-up hands here and there, but the majority of them don't.
Right.
And that's an issue. We pay them to protect and serve our communities, but if you don't know the communities that you're protecting and serving, you have a grave disconnect on both sides.
That's when you get people shooting a security guard in a nightclub
Exactly,
because they don't know that he's the good guy.
Exactly. And again,
Wow.
these are things that are preventative. When we see things happening, such as the Laquan McDonald incident, you think to yourself, is this really what's going on in the city of Chicago, that a young teenager can get shot 16 times without any weapon and not have any prior training from the police to know how to deal with these circumstances?
So of course, it's been going on forever, your entire lifetime.
Oh my gosh, I've got stories.
What's different about this one is that it got interrupted.
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, we have a policeman charged with and convicted of murder.
I think we'll take what we can get, but it's not enough. And a lot of people don't understand that this has been a culture that predates me, that predates a lot of us in this room. Exactly. So we need to understand what is really the root cause of what's going on in our cities and in our communities. And it starts with relationships. We need to invest in our communities so that our police officers are getting out of their vehicles and actually engaging with our communities in a different light, just in the need of panic or of resources. I tell people this all the time. When I was growing up, I had a beat cop, and my beat cop knew my family. And if I was outside before or after and I was not supposed to, get in the car, we're going home. I had a great relationship with my police officers, and that took me a long way because, again, you don't have those relationships now. You only encounter the police in a really difficult time.
Right.
So now we need to start thinking clearly, are we building stronger communities? Are we building relationships that start at an early age? Are they in our schools? Are they playing a game of basketball with our youth? Are they in our senior citizen buildings? All of that matters when we're talking about good communities and relationships.
One of the few development tools left to do some of the stuff you're talking about is tax increment financing.
Yes.
What would you do with that tool?
Well, I think the tool as it has been used has been a toy for a lot of our aldermen, because they use it as a tool to lure development in instead of in the fashion that it's supposed to be used in. So currently we have no after-school programs that cater specifically to the age group between about 12 and 17, which again is one of the most critical stages of our young people's lives, because we were all 12 through 17 at one point, and we thought we knew it all. And we didn't make the best decisions.
That's right. That's right.
We were following after our friends. And so if we're not giving these students any other options besides, the Boys and Girls Club is an amazing resource in our community, but it is not the only way that students interact and that they learn. So we need to build better after-school programs. Like I said, it's no way that we have Truman College in our ward and we're not using that as a resource to get young people
good point.
out of the streets. Our TIF funding has recently gone to big time developers who don't need it, who don't need a penny of
That's
it.
that's the most important sense. Who don't need it.
Who don't need it.
Yeah.
And when you look at what a TIF is for, it's for making sure that communities who are blighted, and again, we need to define what blighted means, because blighted in the South Loop is not the same blighted as Uptown.
Yeah, right.
So we need to clearly define what is blighted. What do we mean by that? And how are we actively making sure that our neighborhood benefits from that? Because they are the ones, the schools, the parks, the resources, the mental health institutes, they are the ones who need it the most.
Do you have any feeling about the elected school board? What is your...
We have to have one.
Okay, then. I guess you have a feeling
I
about
don't think I'm a lot of the things that we need are just a no-brainer. It's
Yeah.
just who's had the balls to make it happen. I think our city council has been very dormant. I believe that they have been a rubber stamp for our mayor, and I don't think that they've been using their own privilege as a city councilman to make the right choices that the entire city needs to benefit from.
Sometimes I feel like, particularly when we were talking with Mick about the mayoral race and how complicated that's going to be to get to some understood ending, or at least some good choices going into the runoff. Seems sometimes to me like we should have a voters' council. You know, where we actually do civics education with one another. I know Family Matters is doing a thing on Monday night that we'll all take part in, but, you know, just where voters, not candidates, but voters get together and talk about the candidates.
Absolutely.
Talk about who fits the bill to get the most done.
Absolutely. And make sure that it's inclusive, you know, because what we've seen is the folks who get to our aldermen are usually folks who've already been there.
Yeah.
So these long-term standing organizations or block clubs or things that they're not really inclusive of the entire community. So as long as they're inclusive, I have no problem, because it would make my life much easier, and it would give our candidates a lot more to stand on, because it's not you're fighting against 10 other people for votes.
So I'm curious. You make it to the runoff. You're elected alderman. What do you do that next morning?
The next morning, I take a sledgehammer and I tear down the rails that are currently under the Wilson Viaduct. So those rails were put up because we had not going to say a homeless problem, because the entire city is suffering with this problem, but we're having a lack of housing problem for our homeless neighbors. And so they built a community underneath the Wilson Viaduct where they would set up tents. We called it Tent City. And our current alderman actually drove them away, threw their belongings away, and then built like prison bars almost.
So you're talking under Lakeshore Drive.
You got it.
Right, the viaduct under Lakeshore
The
Drive.
viaduct under Lakeshore Drive at the Wilson.
He also removed benches so people
Oh
couldn't
my
even lay
God.
down.
Do you know folks are like adamant? I cannot wait
It's
to put a
incredible.
bench out. And I actually want to have like a bench Monday, like just hang out at a bench with your alderman and have an honest conversation.
Didn't I read somewhere that was a prototype for Trump's wall on the southern border?
Oh, I hope not.
Angela Clay, candidate for 46th Ward Alderman. Good luck in your election efforts.
Thank you so
and,
much.
It's great to meet you and to hear
Absolutely.
about your energy that you'll bring to Uptown.
I appreciate you guys for having me so
We're
much.
glad
We
to have
appreciate your work and your commitment.
Oh,
to
thank
your
you.
community.
You put the groundwork down for me. I'm just walking in your
Oh,
footsteps.
listen to that.
Hallelujah. Right on, sister.
So sweet. Next week, more pre-election news and music. We'll have Lynn Orman back telling us what a good time she had at the Grammys. So tune in next week. We want to say thank you to today's guests, Mick Dumke and Angela Clay, candidate for 46th Ward Alderman, and everybody who makes this show possible. Jake Levy, Michelle Song, Michael, Thom, and myself, and of course Lynn. We're happy to be here.
Let's hear a little slide. Take us out.
Do good in the world.
The world
needs
Needs all the good you do. All power to the people.